I worked at 2 hospital placements during my last year of college. At one hospital, I worked with professionals that did therapeutic play with children on the paediatric ward, as well as the adolescent psych ward at the other hospital. My boss and I would do crafts and projects, art, etc., with the teens to help them have an outlet, while they were getting treatment for mental illness, addiction issues, and other medical issues. Each day, before we would see the teens, we would get a rundown from the nurses on the ward explaining who everyone was, what issues they had been hospitalised for, and any other info that we needed. This could include anything from a warning that the patient had violent tendencies, how they were adjusting to being on the ward, which patients they did or did not get along with, etc. So this one night, we were given the usual rundown of the teens on the ward, and the nurse mentioned one teen in particular. This girl, I will call her Sally, obviously not her real name, had all of a sudden just stopped talking one day and started to act really out of character. She would not respond to family, friends, siblings, doctors, or anyone for that matter. She was hospitalised because they became concerned about her harming herself, and they were definitely trying to ensure she was watched 24/7, just in case she was experiencing some type of psychosis. I don't know a ton of the details because we were just given a quick rundown of the patient's case. From what I was told, they had checked and ruled out a brain tumour and any other possible physiological causes and found nothing abnormal. Now, just to set the stage, this hospital is a very old hospital with dark hallways, poorly lit rooms, and the most coldest, creepy atmosphere I have ever experienced. In every way, it looked like a hospital you would see in a horror movie. And when walking down the hallways, I remember always being scared something would jump out at me because there were a lot of blind spots due to its very old layout. Anyway, this night in particular, my co-worker and I started the crafts and the activities for the kids in the kitchen, where we always did our activities. I was sitting close to Sally and tried to initiate conversations, but she would just stare blankly. My boss and co-worker tried as well, but Sally would not respond, and then, without warning, she would just occasionally look at us and laugh loudly, or smile at me with glossy eyes. The doctors had tried all day to get her to speak, and she said nothing, so I just chatted and tried my best to include her, even though she wouldn't really engage. I started to doodle on a piece of paper while talking with some of the other teens, and just randomly I wrote, "Hi," and drew around it, not really thinking about what I was doing. Almost immediately after I wrote hi, Sally picked up a pencil and wrote, "Hello." I was shocked to say the least. I was the first person in days and days that she had attempted to communicate with. I didn't even know what to say or what would happen next, but I wrote, "How are you?" And she actually wrote an answer. I was blown away. After Sally and I exchanged a couple more questions and answers, my co-worker noticed what was going on, so she kept the other teens busy and just nodded at me to keep going. Within a few minutes, this girl and I had written almost a page of conversation, and she was communicating through writing with no trouble. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was getting all this information from a girl that everyone thought was unreachable. We talked through writing for what seemed like hours, but it was probably just an hour. And while I talked to her, asking her about how she was feeling about being in the ward, she admitted through writing that she was scared. I pressed on, trying to see if she was scared because she was in a strange place or missed her family. But she wrote it was because she saw people in the room with us. Obviously there were people in the room with us, so I asked her why the people in the room scared her, and she simply wrote, "They are dead." I swear, when I read that, it felt like my stomach hit the floor. I looked up from the page we were writing on, and she just looked at me, and then turned her head and stared at the door, and no one was there. Well, at least I didn't see anyone there. Sally stared at that door easily for a minute, and I swear she saw something there. I was more scared than I could have even expressed. I will never forget the look on her face. Whether or not there was a person or a ghost there, she could definitely see something. I took a few deep breaths, and once I had her attention again, we started communicating again through writing. We talked this way until 9 p.m. when I had to leave with my co-workers. I thanked Sally for speaking to me, and she seemed a lot more aware when I said goodbye, but she was still not verbalising yet. But I know that the doctors were going to do their very best to find out why. I collected the papers we had written, and before leaving the ward, showed the entire conversation to my co-worker and the nurse that was in charge. Everybody on duty was dumbfounded that I'd actually been able to communicate with her, and they assured me that the pages would be passed along to the psychiatrist the next morning. I was filled with so many emotions. I was happy I'd spoken to her, and she was honest with me, but I was also still incredibly scared and shaken up. My co-worker dropped me off at work, and then I got home, and I remember walking into the living room, and my roommates knew immediately something had happened. I was shaking, and I blurted out everything that had happened. They were supportive, but also freaked out by the situation. I have never been happier to have roommates, because if I'd have gone home to an empty place, I probably wouldn't have slept for days. Sadly, because of the schedule I had, and because of the many different shift changes at the hospital, I never saw Sally again, and no one knew what the final diagnosis was for her. I still get chills when I think about the look on her face that night when she just stared at that door. I don't think I'll ever shake that feeling. I just hope she got the help that she needed.